I'll just give you a little background. I've been working in the San Juan Basin for over 30 years, starting with Amoco. Maybe you remember that company. Yeah. And then Burlington Resources. And then I hung my shingle out about 13 years ago and been doing business in the San Juan Basin ever since. And then we, early on, we were doing coal bed methane horizontal wells for Samson and others. And then the Mancos play started getting legs in like around 2009, 2010. And Canna drilled some of the first wells. We helped in Canna some, primarily a little bit on the engineering side, but mostly on the field side. So the supervisors were our guys, and they had experience in the San Juan Basin, knew all the vendors and all that sort of thing. So it was a good marriage. And from there, we were also working for Logos. Logos were some former Burlington people, and they knew me, and we were drilling vertical wells for them. And I said, why aren't you guys drilling horizontal wells? And they talked to their money guys, and they decided to try horizontal, and it worked out real good. We had both engineering and the operations on that side. So again, doing business there for 30 years, helping the initial people get going. Then there was the purchases that took place after that. It was WPX purchased some of the Logos properties. Our guys went with the rigs with the properties, and those again were former colleagues of mine from Burlington that ran WPX. Rick Moncrief being one of them. Now he's the CEO of Devon. He's the guy that hired me to work in Farmington. So my background was I went to New Mexico State, have a degree in chemical engineering, went to work for Amoco in Hobbs, spent a lot of my first years in the Permian Basin, went to Houston, continued to work Permian Basin. So I know Levelland, Brownfield, Andrews, Roswell, Artesia, all those good places, right? Hobbs, America. And then it came to Denver, and I worked all over the Rockies, including San Juan Basin, drilled the first horizontal. Back then it was a Mesa Verde well for Amoco. And then from there, quit, went to work for Burlington Resources, had my pick of assignment. I picked Farmington. I was the senior engineer there, became regional drilling engineer and drilling manager. And then we purchased properties in Canada. I went to Canada for 8 years and came back working for El Paso Natural Gas in Denver, closed the office, hung my shingle out, and I've been at it for 13 years. So really have enjoyed my career. We do quite a few interesting projects around globally right now, but we spend a lot of time in the San Juan Basin. Currently, right now, we're working for DJR in the Lindrith area, and we're working as company men on that, and then full project management for Tacitus, drilling helium wells south of Shiprock. So a little bit of diversification going there. Been helping Logos, like I say, since probably around 2010. So it's been a long time working with them, helping to train their engineers, keeping a consistency there. I'm just a senior advisor now. They have their own engineering folks, and I just look over their shoulder a bit. So we just continue to get better and better at drilling these type of wells. More and more is known, which you would figure, just like what you've seen in many other basins. It's similar to the DJ Basin here north of Denver, where we have people working for Crestone Peak who just got purchased, and I always forget the name of the new company, but So we try to bring those practices, including what we learned in the northern DJ up around Cheyenne, Wyoming, working for Hellas Oil and Gas, where up there we've completed the best Codell wells in the world. You know, best Codell wells in Colorado, best Codell wells in Wyoming. They're extremely good 1,000,000-barrel wells. So had the great fortune of working for Hellas Oil and Gas, and helping to bring our people that are up there. They, you know, we're kind of we're a small company, have about 30 people right now, and then we try to keep those 30 people busy on all the projects that we manage in the Rocky Mountains. These are fairly straightforward wells because a number of them have been drilled already. Like DJR are trying to make that into a manufacturing type of a scenario. The biggest issue has been getting permits from the BLM. You just have to get them in early and make sure that they carry them through. And Jerry's got, you know, basically shovel-ready projects, which is, you know, not that easy in the San Juan Basin. Like I say, you just got to be committed to it. Got to stay ahead of it. Understand what the government regulation issues might be. But the well plans are fairly simple. We set surface casing through all the groundwater, and then drill down and set 7-inch prior to encountering our major pay zone. And that design can vary from company to company, but typically you set it at a high angle like we do in other parts of the Rocky Mountains. Set that 7-inch, then drill out 6 1/8 hole and drill it to TD, and then run 4.5-inch casing, and then with a liner, and run a tie back to surface 4.5, and then you frac down the 4.5 or 5-inch, depending on what 5.5, depending on what your frac design is. A lot of people are going to the larger production casing sizes. Costs a little bit more, but the way these are designed are what I just mentioned, a typical design. We're targeting the Mancos C, which is a common target, and I'm sorry, is that vacuum bothering you guys?
No, I can't hear it.
Oh, good. So we target it. Some of the issues that we encounter are uphole, wellbore instability, but we've got that dialed in with mud weight and inhibitive mud systems. We don't run oil-based mud, we run a water-based system. We've been working with Newpark Drilling Fluids and others, but mostly Newpark Drilling Fluids, and come up with an inhibitive mud system for the 8 3/4 intermediate hole. And then in the main hole and the production hole, same thing. It's a similar product. We try to keep our mud weight as low as possible in the pay interval, and that's because it's under pressured. The basin is under pressured in this area. Call it not bad, but we don't want to go in there with an overpressured mud weight. We want to keep the mud weight as low as possible, so we can see shows. The wellbore's fairly stable. Usually no issues unless you get way out of zone, which typically we don't with the geosteers that we have. All of our team is very experienced. We've been together for years. My company men, my engineers, my well planner, my mud engineers. I mean, we provide just about everything we need out there. Every critical role is provided by us or what we prefer on the projects that we manage. And because it's just like a well-oiled athletic squad, you want to know the people you're working with. You want to be able to trust them. They know what you expect out of them, and you're not training a bunch of people for some of the service companies. And so it costs a little bit more for personnel, but we save money on the per unit things that we buy because we're just buying the products from some service companies and not full service. So, which they like too, because they're having a hard time filling positions. And where we started this was back with Samson, where on one well we had 8 different mud engineers on a 1 2-week well. And so in order to have consistency and not have screw ups, we've gone to this team concept, and it's worked really good for us. We have completions people as well. Same thing. They've been together a long time. We work with a consulting engineering group to help us design fracs by the name of Apex Engineering, if we want that. But typically we're just fast followers and following what everyone else is doing, find out what they're doing, and typically go with that. And it's not any kind of bleeding edge, just fast following what other folks are doing, and tweaking already proven designs. The biggest issue has been these days shortage of services, but because of our network, our broad network through the Rockies, we're able to bring and replace services that leave the basin. We replaced Halliburton cementing with American cementing out of Rifle, just through people, just by knowing people. And we're working to develop other services locally, which takes longer to get them up to speed. But again, we work with the same service companies typically too, so we're able to get a preferential pick of personnel and equipment, I'd like to think. But that's all depends on scheduling. So that's why it's important, to get this project realized and get it on the schedule, so we can ensure that we have everything we need. We don't have any wait time, that sort of thing. So, you have any questions so far?
Yeah. And I appreciate your going through that background. That's very helpful. And just to let you know, I haven't done any operating in the San Juan in a while. I'm pretty much a Permian Basin guy, so my background is mostly Permian. Similar background though. I hung a shingle for 9 years before I came to work at Hanson, so kind of did some of the stuff you're talking about. So let me just ask you, Frank, so the way you guys kind of work operations, you and Jerry, would be like on a new project like this, you're kind of the operational point guy. Jerry's company is operator of record. You're kind of point guy, and then you've got some other folks working with you, like your field guys and that kind of stuff. Is that correct? Kind of.
Yes, we work for companies like Jerry's that don't have a full staff. So whatever gaps need to be filled, we fill them, depending on the client.
Right. Okay.
Typically, the clients we work for are similar to Jerry's. They have a geologist, they have a reservoir engineer, they have a land guy, and they don't have much else.
Yeah.
And we provide everything else. We can provide. We work with others as well to provide regulatory assistance, but we have construction, drilling, completions, and then facilities. We have a facilities engineer. So it just depends on what the client needs.
Okay. So let me just ask a few specific questions so I can kind of get my head around operating up there in San Juan. So like, for instance, you went through the drilling plan, kind of the whole geometry. The only thing I'm familiar up there with right now horizontally is the DJR stuff, because we're involved in that. But I don't think we're in any of the other players' deals up there that I can recall. But So and you made a comment on the 7-inch 4.5. Is DJR running? Are they running liners and then stimulating through liners, or are they actually putting that tieback string in there and then stimulating?
I believe they're putting tieback string in there, fracking down it. I'm not, they changed their design from time to time, and I'm not involved on the engineering side, but I can ask Ning. She's the completion manager, and get the latest and greatest from her.
Well, I pulled up some of the records. It looked like some of them, I don't know if it's the newest ones, but it appears they're fracking down 7-inch 4.5. I know down here in the Permian, Mewburn does, Mewburn Oil, they do a ton of that. And I didn't know if that's what was going on up there or not.
Well, they probably are, because they want the higher rates, right? They want to get up to 80 barrels a minute.
Yeah.
And that you can't do that with 4.5 all the way back to surface. So,
Right.
but it also means that you're going to have to beef up your 7-inch. So if your frac pressure's 8,000 PSI or whatever, you're going to have potentially have a more rigorous design on the 7-inch.
Yeah, I think Mewburn's running 29 pound P 110. And I know I did look at the frac jobs on the DJR. They're running about, at least the ones I pulled up, they look like the more recent ones are running about 65 barrels a minute. And they are nitrified. So that was kind of a
nitrified. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. You want to be nitrified with a lower pressure for flow back purposes.
Okay. Is frac water any issue up there, do you think, in our area? Where does it come from? I mean, you buy it from ranchers or whatever? Well,
it depends on where you're at. We've got it mostly from we bought them from the Indian tribe, and Jerry can speak to this a bit better, but we can get it from the lake, from Navajo Lake. Jerry, what's your water plan?
About a mile and a half away from us there's a water well that I think we earmarked. Around the Lindrith area, there was about four different water wells that to supply water. I think on a previous well down there, I'd heard that we'd gotten some from Lahara. There's a hole, and then over by Regina, there's one too. So I think long term, it'd probably behoove us to try to take over that water well in section 27 that guy owns on his ranch. It's an old Conoco well. I mean, I would look at doing something like that just to have our own source. It does about 85 gallons an hour. It's a pretty stout well. So I've done a little survey on it. Yeah.
What we did for DJR, we actually permitted and drilled several water source wells.
Okay.
About 3 years ago, and we also the other piece of the equation is disposal. So we also permitted and drilled several disposal wells for them, because I think their production is nearing 15,000 barrels a day, isn't it? It's up there.
Yeah, I looked at that.
Right.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
I know they were wearing jackets the other day that said 10, and I know they're way past that. So probably getting another jacket.
Yeah, I think I did ask Ning what they were injecting into it, and she said it was Entrada.
Yeah, the Entrada is a common disposal.
Is that a sandstone or carbonate?
It's sandstone.
Okay. Does it require like a frac job, or is it that permeable that it takes a lot of water?
It's typically that permeable.
Okay.
It all depends on how aggressive you want. Okay, I should say this. It's typically that permeable where you can put it away, but it depends on where you're at in the basin.
Okay.
So you may have to put a stimulation on. I don't know if John Thompson's on, but he's kind of a Entrada saltwater disposal expert.
Yeah, I know I wrote down what they were doing in that. I went and looked at their online OCD record. It did not appear they stimulated like a frac stem. And
they typically don't want you to. They typically give you a frac pressure that you got to stay below.
Right.
And they really don't. I mean, I think there's been some stimulation, but that's like in areas that's been, very poor permeability and couldn't pump anything into it. But typically it's just a small acid job.
Yeah. Okay.
and get best near wellbore damage. And then we run a step rate test and, see what we can inject. But the state gives us a volume and a pressure to stay below.
Yeah, I think they were doing over 2,000 barrels a day, or they were up to that anyway,
Yeah.
still under their 2 PSI per foot, I think it was. So down here, we're in a deal that we got 5 horizontals to drill next spring. We had to go out and buy casing on all 5 wells. It's really getting tight. Is the situation similar up there on casing?
It's tight, but we have multiple sources for casing. And actually, Tacitus, the operator we're currently working for, we're having trouble sourcing casing. And like we put them in touch with our sources and we were able to get it. So we're lucky that it's all about timing. It's all about, and also being able to adjust your design as well. Somebody might have some 29 pipe on the ground, that a customer ordered and didn't pick up, and it's, if it's available, we can have a good price on it, we're going to get it. So we haven't had any issues on any of our projects, but we've had fairly long lead times on all of our projects, and we're aware of the issues. It was primarily early. Excuse me.
Oh,
It's primarily, I was just outside and I think the pollen got me.
that may have been the vacuum that was running earlier.
I know my wife, she usually vacuums during the Super Bowl or when I'm on conference calls. So I know that there was due to the pandemic, there was only 25% of the inventory on the ground that was pre-pandemic, because just like everything else, the oil country tubulars is a just-in-time type of a deal where people don't hang on to a bunch of inventory. They just flow through, a lot of these people. So that's why it's important to have several sources. I mean, we deal with people in Oklahoma, people in Texas, Midland, right there. And then people through the Rockies all the way to Williston. So, and we have sources in Canada, we have sources in Europe. We just did a project in Africa and ship casing from the Middle East to Africa to do that job. So we have a pretty good network to find pipe.
Okay. And then did you say you guys also pump the wells? Jerry, does that come out of your shop, or does Frank, you pump them? Or?
No, we don't.
We
pump
would
them.
use
That's Thompson.
we currently use Walsh Engineering out of Farmington,
Okay.
and they work with Frank on this here too. I mean, I guess I should have had John on the phone too. I didn't think.
Yeah, Walsh is what we call Walsh is a network partner. We have people in our universe that if we're not if it's out of our wheelhouse, if we're not subject matter experts or we need boots on the ground, we deal with people like John Thompson at Walsh, and John and I have known each other basically from our days at New Mexico State. We're just after when I first went to work for Amoco. So he and his brother both went to school where I went to school, and so we have a really good working relationship. They bring me in on their projects and I bring them in on my projects, and that's like Apex Petroleum Engineering, same thing. They bring us in on their projects and vice versa, because they're frac design gurus. There's other frac, I'm sure you guys have your preferences for frac design gurus down there, but I liked working with them. We did a bunch of work in Williston Basin and in Wyoming in the Powder, and also in the DJ. And what I liked about them is they could tie a lot of the rock information from Schlumberger and whoever's done Earth model stuff and design a very optimized frac from the, right from the beginning. So, but again, the way a lot of people do it is just to get with Liberty or in some other frac provider, Halliburton. You get proposals about, how we would frac the well, but
Okay. Okay. I only had, looks like I just really got one other question. It was about the AFE. I know John did an AFE. Looks like his 4.5 is probably a tieback design or run a full string, but he also had a full string. It looked like 11,000 feet of tubing on a 1 mile lateral. I'm just wondering if that was maybe nobody runs tubing to the bottom, do they? Don't they usually run to the curve and either gas lift or something?
yes.
Okay.
I pulled it up
Typically
here
what
if you
we-
wanted to see any part of it, John and Frank.
Yeah, it was
We
that
could-
tubing down towards the bottom, and I just noticed it was had 11,000 feet in the 4.5 up there, and then 11,000 feet of 2 3/8. So just figured it might have been something that got copy and pasted on a different one. So wasn't a big deal. I just wanted to ask the question if anybody was running tube in the bottom.
No, we're not running it all the way to TD. No,
Yeah. Okay.
we typically run it to the top of the curve, depending on what size pump or what you want to do. I mean, the wells will flow for a while,
Yeah.
and we'll
Okay.
just flow them up the casing until they die, and then go in and clean them out.
Okay. Okay, well, that's that's been helpful. That's kind of just wanted to visit with you and ask a few questions, and that's just, I kind of anticipated some of those answers anyway, but not being that familiar with the area, I wanted to ask and kind of get your take on it. So that's great. That's kind of filled in some of the blanks for me on the operating side.
And then, Jerry, do we have STIPs here?
There's got to be some steps out here on these leases. I don't know, Lori, can you comment on that from previous applications out there?
You're probably seeing that on the
I'm not
DKR.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have to
Well,
verify that.
I don't think there's a winter stip that shuts you out from November to April. But I think we'd probably want to impose that on ourselves just because it gets to be so
expensive.
expensive and it's just so far from, and the days are short and it's just a long way. I mean, your sweet spot out there is really May to October.
That on the drilling side?
November 1st.
Just in general,
Okay.
because it does, we're at elevation.
Yeah.
The winters can be extremely cold. Our ground level elevation is 7,400 feet.
Oh man, I didn't know it was that high. Wow.
Yep. That's on that's the Regina Ranch. Well, let's see what the other one is.
It's about the same.
But- So it's up there.
Yeah.
We haven't got any snow right now. I mean, it's been the latest that snow has come, I think, since the 30s. So it'd be a good year to operate right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the other one, the Lindrith H1 is 7,300 feet. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought of something else. Anybody make any big facility changes with these methane rolls? Like on their tanks, VRUs, or whatever they do at their facilities? Or they just continuing to do what they've been doing?
That's probably
The
a
only
good
thing I know that
question
they've
for
done-
Walsh too, I think.
The only thing I've known, yeah, that's Walsh is the production
Okay.
equipment people, but
Okay.
the only thing I've known that they've done is they, when the wells come on, they're larger, right? And then they fall off.
Yeah.
So what, instead of buying new equipment for all the wells, they'll move their equipment around.
Okay.
So they'll put larger equipment on a new well, and then as it goes down and they're drilling other wells, they'll move the equipment over.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you don't have to have such a big inventory of help control your costs is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And we have manufacturers right there in Farmington. We have Pesco. We're good friends of ours.
Okay.
More New Mexico State people. Can't swing a dead cat around there without hitting somebody.
And they have what, 200 people working at their yard. They're manufacturing equipment for all over Western US and United States, really. So they're
Yep.
Were they located? Farmington or Aztec?
Farmington.
Farmington. Okay.
PESCO.
Okay. Well, Jerry, that kind of takes care of the questions I had. Just kind of wanted to, have an informal talk
Okay.
with Frank and get a feel for it. And I had, a few of those questions answered. So that
Well,
works.
what we did for Logos was because they were a little bit nervous about going horizontal after drilling just vertical wells and then having massive hydraulic fracks on the vertical wells. What we did for them was we put together a plan based upon Encana's 10%, top 10%, and we were able to deliver with inside that on our first well.
Okay.
So that's usually our plan.
Hey, you think there's any issue with any vertical producers on this particular acreage we're talking about, and horizontal, drilling horizontal and fracking, communications and that kind of stuff? I just didn't know how many vertical wells were out there in these target zones.
In
Well,
our
it's-
area, there's half a dozen across maybe what, a 4 or 5 section swath, which were really nominal producers.
Okay. So the
Well-
ones we talked about in that meeting, Jerry, your vertical wells, that's pretty much what you got. I mean,
Yeah, we don't operate any of those. Most of the verticals on the Lindrith East unit area are plugged.
Okay.
But
There's some
the
up-
good news, they have logs, right, Jerry? And we can use
Yeah,
that.
we've got beautiful log library and everything, yeah.
So that's,
And typically, I mean, the wells we have on the Regina part they were drilled in 07, 2 of them. One we're using the pad to drill our unit well in the southern part, the Regina Deep well. And I don't think there's going to be problems with that. I mean, Duncan might be able to have a better idea. I mean, Duncan's done some more detailed work on that, and he can give you more engineering specifics than I could. You want to pipe in on that, Duncan?
Sure. You guys talking about, repeat that question. I thought you were talking about the vertical wells.
Yeah, would the vertical wells have any effect on drilling horizontally in the Lindrith East area and then down by the Regina Ranch? I know you and Rich just were doing cartwheels over the flowbacks on the Regina Romero wells, mainly from the south, because those are the newest wells in our whole area that have been drilled in the last, I don't know, 25 years.
Yeah, on 2 issues, John. If you're talking about anti-collision, then you can rest easy. There's just not many verticals out there at all. Obviously, they'll tie in whatever is there. But then as far as drainage is concerned, there is no drainage issue whatsoever with those verticals where, in Lindrith or Regina. Those guys, it's typical Niobrara. There's a ton of oil in the ground. I think the best well out there is our type well that's cumed 20,000 barrels vertical. So if drainage is your question, not an issue at all.
How many, Jerry, you mentioned plugged wells out there. How many Mancus plugged wells, DNA wells are on the acreage?
Many.
I'm just pulling it up here, John.
The reason I'm asking the questions because of issues I've seen fracking wells and communicating with plugged wells and getting,
Yeah, like chimney effect.
getting, blowing past plugs that weren't there.
Yeah. Jerry can drag it up, but this is a pretty lightly drilled area.
Okay.
Well, by definition, it doesn't, the stuff to the north made big verticals, the stuff down here doesn't, because it's not all busted up. So they just stopped drilling.
If you go out on here, you can see the production isopack of this. Here's the area. This is the Cañada Hitos area. So these were, 500 to up here in the top of the 25-1 and 26-1 was, well over 1 million or 2 million barrel wells, some of them. But as you got to the south, you can see it thinned out as far as your production isopack goes. Zero in on our area here.
So, and if I may, a bunch of those well spots are not, a bunch of them are pictured cliffs, fruitland, so they don't even penetrate at depth into the Mancos.
Okay.
Yeah, just
That's what I
just
was
for
wondering.
knowledge, our initial well will be right here. Can you see my cursor okay? Maybe I should.
Yeah.
Our initial well is going to be right here and head up this way to through section 23 and 4. This is a dry hole. It was, I don't know, it made 2,000 barrels of oil and then they plugged it. They had, all these are dry holes up here, the Boynton Lolas and the Twilight Zone. This is an old dry hole here.
But like actual,
Are they,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'm kind of interested in Mancus dry holes.
Yeah, everything I'm talking is Mancus, John.
Oh, is it? Okay.
John, yeah. We did the greener grass was over here. One of these is a dry hole. It made about 14,000 barrels. And then down here, Marion had the Christina and the Rocky Mountain down here in 25, right in this area here. It both, I don't think they made more than a couple thousand barrels. You did have, those are the ones that I can really think off the top of my head: Greener Grass, Boynton Lolas, Twilight Zone, Oso Canyon, Christina, and Rocky Mountain. We have logs on all those right here. I can get those specifics, and Rich could even pull up maybe a map that would show those specifics on there. Then all these wells are holding PC. These PC leases are held by Pictured Cliffs. That's 3,000 foot sandstone gas producing wells.
Okay.
Most of this is held by PC over here and over here. Now this is part of the Schmitz anticline on the far east. Right here, the Wishing Well, that's the one my dad drilled in, 84. It's and you can see the cumes get a little bit higher over this way. This is a producing Mancus well in the it's a, I don't know, half-mile lateral. Rich, you can help me with this. It never been
Half-mile
fracked.
lateral.
It'll cume about
17.
80,000 barrels. It's already produced 37,000. It's right in this area here. This was a test Mobil did in 1982. Badlands IP of 82 barrels and about 80 barrels of water. Of course, I mean, your technology in those days is, it's like ancient. Any other Mancus wells I can think of, John?
No, that's it. We got the Amaker well, the Amaker well also tested some oil out of the Mancos. It was a vertical. a small frac and they walked away from it.
Is that one over here?
That's basically Smith's Anticline.
Yeah, it's Smith's Anticline. And then, of course, we have our Romero here. We think it's 63 MBO EUR. And then the Regina Ranch, on which our location's gonna be sticking this well. This is gonna be heading in this direction up here for a mile or more. Our PC well is holding this lease. PC well is holding this lease. This lease is held by the Regina Ranch current Mancus well. So that's about as far as you can go. The EOG just moved a rig out here to the east or the west on this. Just as an aside, they're drilling this well right now. I heard someone was saying they're just going to drill a vertical and see what it looks like and do a test. So, anyways, that's what we have as far as. Am I missing anything, Rich? Duncan?
Essentially, the oil wells that you see on that map, the black, that's wells that have penetrated through the Mancos. So you can see roughly, it's probably less than a half a dozen in Regina Ranch, and it's about a half a dozen in Lindrith East.
Mm-hmm. See, everyone thought that Gavilan was going to continue down to the south here. And man, they made some really hard deals to get these leases done in like 1985 or 84. And they were just not very good wells at all. If you look out here, then you got your Ingwerson. This is a Mancus well drilled in 59, Rich, is that about right?
Yes.
So drilled by Mobile, Magnolia initially, and then some independent guy, Frank Yaki, came in and produced it in this later 60s and got it up to over 68,000. So this is kind of a strange. Then this well right here is another Dakota well right here. So interesting shows right next to this acreage here.
I would just add,
One other thing out here to the west is this is this Dakota zone, Lindrith B Dakota unit, and those were anywhere from those were big oil wells.
I would just add, Jerry and John, the wells that Jerry just walked you through, a couple thousand, upwards of 10 or 20,000 barrels of oil. Those are what we consider great vertical show wells, and they're in our mind identical to the great vertical show wells that you see over to the west in the Enduring and the DJR area. We think we're basically looking at the same exact rock. And once you put a 1.5 mile lateral in there, with the modern day frac, those 10, 20,000 barrel vertical wells are actually turning into what we see as 900,000 BOE wells, of which about 60% of that or so is oil.